Hey, gun people! I want to talk about this Jeff, or not, is it Jeff Sessions? Yeah, Jeff Sessions on his Senate hearing. So, here's some things I kind of want to explain. If people aren't watching the hearings, they're questioning and they're just throwing up smoke. I mean, there's absolutely, and I'm not some Trumper that just loves Trump and thinks he's perfect, but I mean, you've got 9 months of investigation. You've got absolutely zero proof, zero evidence that Trump or any of his people did anything, and you got these damn libertard idiots and their cohorts, McCain, screaming that somehow at a public meeting Trump had his cabinet trying to cut deals with Russia to collude into breaking into the internet and messing with the election. And Comey himself said there is absolutely no evidence and no indication that they had any impact on the election whatsoever. After 11 months or 9 months of investigation, there is no evidence. But you got to understand politics. When one side gets blood in the water and one side wants to make a big deal out of something, and the media's pushing this and hanging, I guarantee you, and shit worse than this happened with Obama, and it was never discussed. Because the left covered it up, the media covered it up, the right's a bunch of freaking wimps that just don't want to go after the left like the left likes to go after us, so it was all brushed on the rug. But doing this hearing, Sessions did a really good job. Now, Judge Napolitano said that he thought Sessions testifying was a bad move. He thought he was opening himself up to possible problems because he said Sessions has to make a decision when he's testifying in Congress under oath whether he wants to protect himself or he wants to protect the president. Now, Napolitano making that statement assumes that somebody did something wrong. In Sessions' mind, and I got no problem with this, he's like, I ain't got nothing to worry about. I didn't do nothing wrong. I don't think my boss did anything wrong. I have no knowledge of anything going wrong. I got no problem testifying. Another thing that the liberal left isn't pointing out, how they're throwing out terms like stonewalling and hiding, and he fired the FBI director. The FBI director getting fired had absolutely zero impact on the Russian investigation. The investigators who were working this case have supervisors, they have managers, they have deputy district or deputy directors. I mean, there's so many people in the chain between Comey. Does anybody think Comey was going in every day going, okay, let's get on this Russia investigation. What do you got? Okay, I'm going to make a phone call. I'm going to call Russia out. Let me read this. Comey didn't do any of that shit. He's a freaking admin guy that sits at the top. He gets briefed after his other bosses gets briefed, and firing him had absolutely zero impact on Russia. If anything, it caused the left to be able to scream and cry, and they're focusing more on a go-nowhere investigation. And the millions of dollars and time spent on this is absolutely ridiculous. But here's some things that came out in those hearings that I thought was kind of telling, and I'm going to kind of pass on to you guys. If you're ever being interviewed or you're being interrogated, and an interrogation and interview is a little bit different. An interview is I'm just trying to get information. An interrogation is I'm trying to get incriminating information on you. So in order for an interrogation to take place, you're normally a suspect. And then they call it an interrogation. Does it really change on what I can ask and what I can't? No. I can ask the same questions in an interview that I can in investigation. It's just traditionally the name, kind of like a subject or suspect or person of interest. That really doesn't do a whole bunch. The media has gotten away from saying suspect because they're afraid that a vigilante will go out and try to get this guy and they'll use the defense. You said he was a suspect, therefore I have reason to believe that he committed a felony, and as a citizen I can arrest, chase, and capture a felon. So the media kind of tends to stay away from suspect, and they want to use person of interest or subject of the investigation, or it means the same. If you're a person of interest, a suspect, or a subject, you're the focus, you're involved in the investigation, somebody thinks you have something to do with the crime. Now, you could just be a witness. You could have got dragged in. You could have just gave a guy a ride and didn't know about it. But you're still connected with that investigation if you're one of those people. So in this hearing, let's see. Lots of statements posed as questions. Okay, so as usual in any Senate hearing, if you watch it, I should have turned off the air conditioner, man. It's freaking hot in here. Any Senate hearing, when you're watching it, the people asking questions, you can tell right off whether they're after Trump or they're not after Trump. And you could do it with Obama. If they were investigating Obama, you could tell the people that liked Obama and the people that didn't. And I'm talking about the people on the committee who were asking the questions. Because if they liked Obama, they would start out with, President Obama's doing a great job and we know you work with him and we know it's hard work and we hate to drag you here for these questionings, but it's part of the process. And I'm going to ask you a couple questions and they may be difficult and I hope you can shed some light on us to show that President Obama and his people are not doing anything wrong. That's pretty obvious that I'm like Obama if I start my questions that way. The libs were starting their questions, the sessions today. Isn't it true that you and President lied and the President tweeted and the President had Russian contacts? And do you believe that the President had knowledge and is trying to stonewall? And don't you think the President fired Comey just because he's guilty of the Russian investigation? I mean, it was so telling. And stupid people who don't have a critical eye and who don't question things, they read that hearing and they hear those questions, which are really statements. Remember, 90% of all questions are really statements. Somebody asks you, well, what do you think about Black Lives Matter? That's a statement. That's not a question. They're making a statement. Well, don't you think white people are racist? They're making a statement. They're not asking a question. So most of your Senate questions are really statements. So the senators get to kind of stand up and promote their side. And that's critical if you're being interviewed or asked questions on how you want to answer and how you deal with who's asking questions. Because cops always play good guy, bad guy. Well, Senate committees play good guy, bad guy. They have the guys who are Republicans who like Trump playing good guy. They have the guys that don't like Trump, the Democrats, playing bad guy. And then they have the crossover, some of the guys that, aren't necessarily party loyal. So, realize that when somebody asks a long question that takes 5 minutes to ask, and then the answer to the question are yes or no, that's called a closed-ended question. As an investigator, if I'm asking you questions, sometimes I want to ask open-ended, and sometimes I want to ask closed-ended. If I want to make a statement and kind of trap you in so there's no way to weasel out of it, I will ask the question, isn't it true you were in the car that was the getaway driver, you were a passenger, you saw him run out with a mask, and he had a gun, and he threw money in the car, and y'all drove off. Isn't that true? That's a closed-ended question. I'm asking for a yes or no answer, but I made an incriminating statement. So when you answer that yes, if the answer is yes, basically you've made an incriminating statement from my question that I just asked. So that's what these guys are doing on these committee hearings when they get people up there. They're making questions so when you answer them, even if it's truthful, you've kind of implied their incriminating question is now true. So anytime you're being interviewed, you need to realize if somebody's asking you for a closed-end question, you need to be answer open. And I think I might have been in 1 or 2 IAs. I don't even remember. I wasn't even the focus. I think I was a witness to a couple other IAs. I don't think I've ever been an IA. Maybe one. I can't remember. Except when I turned in that dirty DA and I watched them come out and when they were questioning me and grilling me in front of the attorney and the judge, they would try to give me closed-ended questions. So when somebody asks you a closed-ended question to where they want you to answer yes or no, you need to realize you can clarify that and make that question clear and tear down that statement. So if I ask you, isn't it true that you were in a car, to get away car, he come out with a gun, and he robbed a place, and you drove away, and you saw the money, and you knew he robbed a store, you would say, well, I was in a car. That's correct. And when he got in, I was a little shocked, and I didn't know they were robbing a bank, and I didn't know that he had a gun till he came out of the bank, And I didn't know there was a robbery until we took off and I saw the money and I put it together and it was too late. So, yeah, I was in the car. So now I've just defeated that incriminating question instead of just answering, yeah, I was in the car. Because the two make a difference. I tell people, if you have to shoot somebody or defend yourself, statements will get you convicted or keep you out of jail. Your statement is critical. That's why it's better to make no statement. But if you make a statement and you understand how to make it and you make sure that you get in there, I was in fear of my life. I had no choice. I had to do it to save my life. I had to save someone else's life. I thought he was a danger. I was in fear. If you don't get those out and make that very clear and you just answer the cops' questions, do you have a permit? Yeah. Did you shoot this guy in self-defense? Yeah. Okay. Did you give any warnings? Well, there was no, I don't need you to explain, just yes or no. Did you give any warnings? And you answer no, I wouldn't answer no. I'd be like, well, look, if you want to ask me a question, I'm going to answer it my way. And that's not a yes or no question. I didn't give any warnings would be the correct answer, but the reason I didn't give any warnings is relevant to your question because I didn't have time. There were sirens, there were bells ringing, people were screaming, and people were running, and people had just been shot. My ears are ringing because the gun was fired. So that's why I didn't give warnings. There wasn't time. It wasn't like I made a choice not to give it. So you need to be able to be confrontational when you're being questioned in incriminating stances. And Sessions did a pretty good job. At one point, this one guy pretty much implied that he was lying and that he was kind of covered. And man, he got in his ass and he goes, why don't you tell me? He goes, I'd like to hear you answer that question for me, because he asked some bullshit question to make him look bad, and he threw it right back in his senator's lap. He goes, why don't you tell me where this investigation is going? Why don't you tell me what you know? If you're going to ask these questions and say I'm stonewalling, what am I stonewalling about? And the senator just moved on, because he disengaged that type. He didn't allow that guy to run his investigation. So, open-ended questions, close-ended questions, you need to realize that. Let's see. Time. Anytime you have time limits, that you need to use that to your advantage. And now, I'm sure senators and everybody, politicians know this, but as a politician, if I know, because the chairman and the vice chairman get 10 minutes, and then each member of the committee gets 5 minutes. So I know you have 5 minutes. So if you come at me with some bullshit question that takes you 20 minutes or 4 minutes to ask because you make a statement, and then you ask me some simple question at the end of the statement for a yes or no, I might say, could you repeat the question? I'm going to use your time up. I'm going to make you use your time, and I'm going to make you look like a fool asking stupid questions and waste your time instead of just getting to the point. So anytime someone asks you, and I've done this on a stand when I was testifying in court many times, I'll get a defense attorney and they'll try to ask these complex questions to where if I can get you to answer one, it sounds like you're answering them all, so I can come back later and make it look like you answered them all. And I'll say, wasn't it true when I asked you this question, you said that? I can have the question read back, and they have this long question read back, and you answered yes, and you're like, well, when I answered that, I was more referring to that part. Well, you didn't say that, did you? Because the record's clear, you answer the whole question. So it will be used against you, and then once you get that shoved up your butt a few times, you kind of learn, no. I've said a few times, I said, Your Honor, that was a complex question. There were several questions in there. Can you have him break that down into one question so I can understand the question? Because he went off on 4 different areas. And the judge will always simplify your question. What's your question, counselor? And he would come back with one question. Isn't it true, or did you do this, or whatever? And then I could focus on that instead of letting him get this compound, complex, muddy water question that I end up answering yes to, or I end up answering no to, and then later it comes out, I answer yes when it's separate on one little area, and it's like, well, didn't you say no when I asked you earlier? So, interviewing people who are good interviewers and who have done this for a while, you know how to trick people up. The shit we did with suspects, now, we didn't do this to get people to be like, yeah, cops lie. We lied and we tricked and we did things, but we did it because we knew the guy was guilty and we were trying to get him confessed. We weren't trying to beat it or get false information. We had enough evidence where we knew, this one guy, I went and made a copy of my hand on the copier, and I brought it in there and threw it down and go, dude, these are your prints we pulled out. And it was my hand, and the guy confessed. Because he's like, man, if you got me your prints, I guess I'm done, you know. And then once he admitted that, that led us to where we came back in with, well, now that you admitted you did it, man, how did you get in the house? We used a screwdriver on the back door. Okay. And then where did you take the stuff? Oh, we took it to our friend's house. So now, even though I got him to admit he did it on just my handprint, now I get details of how he committed the crime, so he can't say later, because the defense will say, oh, they tricked him. They told him he had fingerprints and it wasn't true. Well, yeah, you're right. But we didn't tell him how the perp got in, where he took the product, where we found the product, what was taken. We get him to give us details, and then that makes our case stronger, even though it started out maybe as a trick. Now, people are going to be the weirdos that come here and think all cops are crooked and we're just trying to put people in jail. I never put a guy I thought was innocent in jail. I never arrested, never went to court, never if I didn't think a guy did it, I flat out said, I don't think the guy, we got a wrong for a guy, and I did not testify and I did not cooperate in any investigation. And most of the times they were let go because nobody really wants to spend time catching the wrong guy. Now, there's a lot of bad guys out there that have committed hundreds of crimes and they got 20 and 30 page rap sheets, and we want to get them off the streets and we want to get them back in prison, but we don't go out and plant evidence and trick. But prosecutors may not be as willing to bring out evidence that clears this guy because they know he's just a crook. Is that crooked? It's not within the letter law. Is it in the spirit? Is it in the spirit of keeping bad guys off the streets and keeping people safe? Yeah. Is the spirit right over? I mean, that's a big moral debate. But anyway, understand open-ended questions and closed-ended. If I ask you, explain to me what happened on May 17th, 2001. That's open-ended. I can't answer that question with yes or no. I have to elaborate, I have to give facts, I have to talk. So attorneys who knew they had a good cop on the stand, they would let them, and I usually got a lot of open-ended questions because the DA, instead of going through, well, on this date, isn't it true you do this, and did you do this, and they would just walk you through a report. When you hear an attorney walking a witness through the reports, they don't have a whole lot of confidence in the witness to let him just explain his story because they're afraid he'll step on his pee-pee and they'll ruin a case. So you can tell if you're sitting on a jury the way someone is questioning somebody on whether or not he's a good witness, he's a reliable witness, he's trustworthy, on how he's being questioned. Now, defense attorneys a lot of times will ask open-ended questions to get you to explain something and trip you up. And then you got to be careful and say, I need to keep this short. So if you ask me what happened on May 17th, I might answer, I contacted your client and arrested him for drugs. And now I'm going to make him go back. If the defense or the prosecution would ask me what happened on May 17th, I would say I was on routine patrol patrolling this area at approximately 14:25. I noticed so-and-so. He was driving a car. He ran a stoplight. I pulled in behind him. When I activated the lights, I saw further movement in the car. He had drugs. I got him out. I took him out at gunpoint. I detained him. I searched the car, found drug scales and a gun, and I arrested him for the following offenses, or the preceding offenses. And so that's the way a DA would maybe get my question out, but I wouldn't necessarily say that to a defense attorney. Now somebody's going to say, that's crooked and that's not ethical. You know what? Look, I'm not here to help a defense attorney get a guilty guy off. If I was testifying, I knew the guy was guilty. So I am not going to help get this guilty guy off by maybe tripping myself up by giving too much information. Am I going to lie? No. Am I going to withhold information if somebody asks a specific question? No, I'm not. But I'm not going to be as loosey-goosey with the defense as I am with the prosecution. And either way, my statement's on the record. Both attorneys are there. Both can question me and both can pick up if I tripped up or if I stepped on my pee-pee in either way. So they both have the opportunity to clean up or to make me look bad. So back to Sessions' hearing. He was under oath and he said a lot about best I can recall or to my recollection or I don't recall that. Those are absolutely lawyer legal terms. And if you're ever accused of a crime in court, shoot somebody, you have to defend yourself, and you're getting charged with a crime, you need to learn that terminology because that will save you. When you go under oath, you don't want to make a mistake. If you talk to the FBI, you don't want to make a mistake or you're charged with lying, it's a federal offense, and you go to jail. So that's why experienced lawyers and people who are experienced with the system will always say, to the best of my recollection. As far as my memory is today, I don't remember that. I don't remember that happening. You know, and sometimes somebody asked me a question, I'd be like, the prosecution would ask me sometimes because he wouldn't go over the case. We'd both be late, or one of us would be late to court, and we didn't have a chance to sit down and go over the case real good before court, because most DAs are usually, they don't give a shit, so they just get there anyway when it's time to court. But your good DAs will usually call you the day before or meet you an hour or so before, and you'll go over your case and make sure there's any errors, and they'll make sure they understand the case clearly. In case the defense asks you something, they'll have information that they can clear up, or either object because it's hearsay, or get it held out, or whatever, do their legal mumbo jumbo. So, I mean, but, you know, sometimes a prosecutor asks me a question, and I'm just sitting there like a deer in the headlights, like, what the fuck is he asking? And I'll be like, I don't understand the question. And that's a clue to him. You need to break this down and lead me where you want me to go, because I have no clue what you're asking or what your answer is. So, I mean, it's not because I was lying, it was just kind of like, and I can't even think of a question. But there's been a few times I was just like, I don't understand the question. And that's a clue that you need to break it down. And you can say that to the defense or anybody. If they give you a complex or question you don't understand, it's better to ask them you don't understand the question than to try and answer it, appear smart like you understand the question, and then you answer something wrong that bites you in the butt later. So Sessions, I mean, he did a great job. He was under oath, but he said, I don't recall, and I have no memory of that. And basically, he's covering his ass for perjury in case somebody is going to ask him some minute question about a meeting or a party or a committee meeting with the Trump campaign, and there was a party, and one person said, yeah, I was standing next to him, and I heard him say, the Russians hacked. That's all I heard him say. And then, so in all this meeting, somebody throws out a question. Well, did you ever hear anybody talk about Russian hacking at all at this meeting? And he goes, no, I never heard that. Now they're like, I got you, because we got a witness that's been standing next to you when we have this guy that said he mentioned it. You know what? It's a statement that I just don't remember or whatever, but it looks like you're lying. Where you say, you know what? I don't remember anybody saying that, but maybe they did. I just don't remember anybody saying it. Now you're covered if somebody comes back with a got you. It kind of sounds weaselly. It sounds like you're trying to hide, but it's just protecting and covering your ass. Like Napolitano told him, you got to defend if you're defending yourself or the president. I don't think he was defending the president or himself. I think he was just telling the truth. And I think he was covering his ass by saying, to the best of my recollection, no, I don't remember that. And he's covered his ass so somebody can't come back with a little gotcha moment. What was some other things that I got out of this? Comey works for the deputy director. So all this shit about Mr. Comey, and he's the director, and he's so great, and he's met with Loretta Lynch, and he's had conversations with Lynch, and she's direct. And he gets out of a meeting, Mr. High and Mighty, gets out of a meeting with the president where he's now saying the president tried to get him to stop the investigation. He doesn't tell the director that. He doesn't tell the attorney general because he works for the deputy attorney general. He doesn't work for the attorney general. The FBI director reports directly to the assistant attorney general, the guy right below the attorney general. So Comey gets out of this meeting and he tells his boss's boss, hey, don't leave me alone. He's like, look, you can be alone with the president. I know what y'all could have been talking about how to make cookies recipe for all I know. It's not for me to tell the president when he wants to talk to you by himself. It's up to you as the FBI to say, I can't talk about ongoing investigations. I think this is inappropriate, and we should get I should get my bosses in here so we can clear this up. You got to have a set of balls, Comey, you freaking pussy. Ooh, he said the P word. Shut up. So anyway, in the military or in any type of structure in politics, there's a strict chain of command. And you normally don't jump. In cop work, if you jump the chain of command, that's considered insubordination. You can be written up and disciplined. If I go to my lieutenant without going to my sergeant first, or if I just go to the chief and I don't talk to the lieutenant or the captain, that's considered jumping the chain. Now, a lot of your chiefs and guys up top will say, I have an open door policy and you can always come to me. And that's a smart move, because you don't want guys being held to that chain of command, because the problem may be in the chain. And if you tell them, then you're going to get blackballed or beat down, so you need to go around them. So there's usually a loophole to go around them. But Comey, Mr. I know all the rules, I make memos and everything, he didn't go to his direct boss. He never said a word to his direct boss the Deputy Attorney General, he only mentioned it in passing to the Attorney General, and the Attorney General's like, don't do anything unethical. He goes, you know, if you don't think you can talk about something, tell the President you can't talk about it. What's wrong with that? So, let's see here. What's the next thing we're talking about here? What was the concerns with Comey? Oh, I had a question on why is it everybody's talking? The Deputy Attorney General who wrote the letter saying Comey needs to go. And here's why. He violated all these rules. We're hearing bits and pieces. He violated protocol. He was just an investigating. He had no right to clear an investigation. He shouldn't clear Hillary. He should have sent that over to the Attorney General. He didn't. He made a press release. He talked about an ongoing investigation. He gave out details about an ongoing investigation, about what Hillary did and what they had. And he did all this in violation of all the rules of the FBI. He wasn't disciplined. Nothing happened to him. Nobody said shit. Why? Well, you know, whatever. The Deputy Attorney General wrote a letter saying he needs to go. When he gave it to the Attorney General, Sessions goes, I kind of concur. We've had this conversation. Your memo makes a lot of sense. You're his direct supervisor. You're closer to the problem than me. I agree with what you put in this memo. I'll support you and endorse he needs to go. And they gave that to the President, and the President fired him. I mean, whatever. I mean, even if Trump, let's just say the liberals are 100% right. Trump fired him because he didn't like his answers that he gave him on the Russian investigation. Big freaking deal. Who cares? He can fire him. He's an at-will employee. He appoints him, he can get rid of him. And he don't have to have cause. And something else that Trump's not getting credit for is Trump can shut down, he can claim executive privilege, he can stop all of his guys from testifying, he can tell Congress to kiss his ass just like Obama did a bunch of times, and he can shut down the independent counsel. He has a right to do that. He hasn't done that. And nobody's giving him credit. Instead, they're milking it and trying to make the American people, because the left-wing media is promoting this picture that, oh, it's got to be a cover-up, and oh, look, they're not doing... And you know what? If there was a cover-up, Trump would say, screw your independent counsel, my guys ain't testifying, I got executive privilege, move on. And that's exactly what Obama did, and you know what? The media always moved on, Congress always moved on, and nobody said a word. Obama kept doing his dirty shit. Man, the hypocrisy of how dirty Obama was, and none of this happened to him. And you got Trump been in office for less than, I don't know, 3 months or 5 months. He just got his cabinet. Obama had his cabinet approved in 2 months and was having meetings with his cabinet less than 2 months in office. Trump's been in office 5 months, and he just had his first cabinet meeting because they have been obstructing him on every way. And you know what? I'm always saying, you know, we get the politicians that we elect, but we also get the politicians that we let get beat up and run out. Because people don't support people that are like Trump, who are standing up saying screw the system. If you don't get behind people like that and show him that he's going to have good support, why the hell would anybody else want to get in politics and get hung out to dry and have to play the game and go along to get along, or you're going to get screwed? People ought to be coming out in droves for Trump. All right, let's see. Sessions did really good on not answering hypothetical questions. A lot of the senators always like to put out these hypotheticals. Well, if you were the president, what would you do? Well, would you have fired him if you were the president? Well, what do you think we ought to be focusing? They had a lot of hypothetical questions. Those are no wins. Never get involved in a hypothetical, because somebody's trapping you to put you in a box. And if you answer this, they're going to make you look bad when they switch it around to what's really happening. And Sessions didn't take the bait. He flat out said, look, I don't want to answer hypotheticals. We got real problems with real issues. Let's stick to the real issues. I'm not answering hypotheticals. Good job. Perfect answer. I loved it. Just for GP, DOJ, our Department of Justice, has over 10,000 lawyers. And no lawyer runs around unless they got freaking 3 assistants, a secretary, and a freaking 2 paralegals. So you can imagine the bureaucracy at our DOJ. 10,000 lawyers. Just the FBI alone has over 35,000 employees. That's more troops than we got in the whole country of South Korea. I mean, 35,000 people in the FBI. And people are like, we need more government. Are you kidding me? I mean, it's just freaking crazy. Executive privileges conversation. The hearing kind of got a lot on because Sessions was saying, look, I'm not going to get in private conversations and be me and the president, because the president has to be able to trust people when he talks, and this is long standard, and it kind of connects with privilege. The president has executive privilege. Oh shit, I just lost my freaking video. What happened? Okay, I'm going to try to combine these two videos because I guess I lost battery and the camera just went out. So I was at executive privilege. Executive privilege for the president exists because they say, and I'm not a fan of it, I don't necessarily like it, but I understand it. The president needs to have the ability to be able to talk to his cabinet and his people closest to him without the fear that anytime the other side wants to come and snag one of his people and go, what'd you and the president talk about, that all of a sudden the other person's side of the story gets to come out. Well, in this meeting, what did you talk about? Well, the president made me feel uncomfortable because he looked at my titties when we were talking. And now all of a sudden, well, in a conversation we were talking about women or whatever, and suddenly he looked at my titties. And that's a far off example, but you just don't want, as the president or any leader of a company, I don't want to be talking to you and feel comfortable that I can trust you and that we're on the same side, and then all of a sudden Congress can call you up and go, hey man, you seem pretty tight with the president. We're going to call you in here on this investigation, and we're going to ask you about all the conversations you ever had with the president, and you got to tell us. So they're saying in order to make government more effective, and in order to protect and make government able to share information, you have to have this open line of communication, have trust. And this same thing the DA tried to pull when I turned him in for trying to hide that evidence. He tried to claim attorney-client privilege, saying since I worked for him, I was telling his strategy to win a case, and I couldn't do that, and I couldn't violate that, so anything that I knew should be thrown out. And the judge went, no, that ain't happening. And I mean, I objected and went, I told him flat out, the privilege ain't yours, you big dummy. It's me as the client. If I was your client, I have attorney-client privilege. The client has the privilege, not the attorney. You're bound by your ethics and canons that you can't disclose. I'm the client. I can disclose. So his argument was stupid, but in the executive privilege area, that's why they have executive privilege. They want the president to be able to say, you know what, this is a witch hunt. You guys don't have to talk about it. I'm claiming executive privilege. Which Obama did several times. I wish somebody had a counter on how many times he did it. So anyway, and they tried to make it seem like Sessions, because he didn't want to answer questions about personal conversations, that he was invoking executive privilege. And he goes, I can't invoke executive privilege, only the president can. Then they go, you need to answer our questions. He goes, I'm not talking about private conversations without letting the president know what my stance is and whether or not he wants to release it or he wants to claim. So I'm protecting his right to claim it, but I'm not answering that right now. Not to mention, he should have said, it really has no damn point on the Russian investigation anyway. You guys are just fishing, trying to stir up mud. So, and he did kind of at one point tell him that. So let's see, I'm almost done here. Let's see, Holder. Oh, all the liberals are saying, how can you come here and say, where is this policy that you don't have to talk about what you and the president said? Give me this president. Finally, one of the, may have been an Oklahoma senator, said, Eric Holder came in here, I don't know how many times in front of how many committees, and said, my private conversations with the president is private and it's between me and him. And he refused to answer questions. I watched him do it several times. He did it several times, and that wasn't a problem. Because the liberals don't have any integrity or ethics. All they have is cheap, sleazy, dirty tricks to push their liberal, left-wing, sick agenda so they can get in power and continue to push their freaking scum into power. It's just ridiculous. Repeated, you want people on your side. Okay, so, let's see. Stops impacts for the Russian. Oh, nobody asked, can you please tell me how the firing of Comey affected this Russian investigation? Now, at one point, Sessions did get out. Let me get on the record. Comey being let loose had no impact on this investigation. The same guys are working it, and it's still ongoing, and I don't know anything about it because I, took myself out of the loop, and I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And I don't know what's going on, but I know it wasn't impacted because Comey isn't the guy doing the investigation. He's merely getting briefed on how the investigation is going, and then he's briefing other people. So anyway, that's kind of the Comey sessions, how it went, good, bad, or indifferent. If you didn't watch it, if you watched it, maybe I kind of gave you a few other things to kind of pick out on some of those questions, how to tell very quickly who's on the president's side, who isn't, who thinks this is bullshit, who wants to make this a big political thing and ask these big super questions. And that one freaking female, I don't know what's her name, Collins I think is her senator. Man, I'm telling you, that woman, she can barely hold her head up. She looks like a bobblehead sitting there. I mean, how the hell is she? When I see people like that as representatives, other people are pulling the strings. Other people are doing her work. People are shoving shit at her and saying, sign this, this is what you agree, oh, you're going to be okay with this. She has other left-wing idiots, and that's why the left likes to have idiots up there, because then they have more influence to control them, because they don't know it. Pelosi, same way. Both of them have checked out. McCain, same way. Those guys ain't got no business being in any position where it takes good mental faculties to recall facts and think they can't even get who the freak the president is. McCain's calling Comey the president. Pelosi's calling Trump President Bush. They're all so freaking left-wing or idiot loons, they can't even get who's freaking the sitting presidents, and we've got them up there passing legislation, sitting up there getting re-elected for 14, 15 times, being in a government for freaking 35, 40 years, and idiots don't have a clue to stop electing incumbents. That's the worst thing that we can do to fix our government, is to allow the idiots to spend more time up there. All right, we'll end that there.